Hi, and Steve, this is Dennis. We're from Yale Appliance. We're going to answer some appliance questions. This is Dennis's first time. So, Dennis, you approved every single question. We have 25 questions to answer in about 29 minutes.
Some of them are a bit redundant, so I think they kind of overlap. So
nice. Let's get into the first one. This is what is the best range of the market? That's a pretty broad question. Depends. Gas, electric, dual. I personally think I happen to like induction the best for all around gas. I would say if you can combine the top of Wolf with the steam assist capability of a Miele, with perhaps the power of Blue Star, and the color choices of Blue Star with the look of a La Cornue, that would be the best range in the market.
Yeah, that's a lot covered. Yeah, I would say, listen, I like the Blue Star on the Pro. I certainly still like Wolf. And on the price point stuff, listen, I think LG Studio, I think it offers great value. So, yeah.
All right, let's do the next question. It's funny. I did a TikTok video on this. I like it because it's different, but it's not counter depth, so people aren't buying it. And I think they cut it up so much that I like the fact that the refrigerator seems to be waist high, like on the bigger integrated ones. You got to raise. I mean, you got to go way up, but I think it's just too cut up. Personally, what do you think?
Yeah, I would agree. We're talking about the KRMF 706, and I agree. It's deep. I think the ice maker, the way they've designed the ice maker on the door too, is really, really large. So you almost lose that left-hand side of the door.
Yeah.
So I think about that. And when you add those drawers, with every drawer, you lose roughly 25% of the storage space you would have had without it, because there's a seal and everything else.
Yeah.
So, but I think the fact it's not counter depth's the issue. For a lot of people.
And people aren't going to buy it that way. Well, next question. What are your thoughts on cafe appliances, specifically the 36-inch induction cooktop?
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, I like cafe appliances. Style, I think it's still there. I think some of it needs some continued upgrades, but I think they've been doing well. Their induction cooktop, I like. It's kind of like the old Wolf electric cooktops, where the dial is kind of very intuitive. It's kind of like a half moon. So you can kind of just roll your finger and slide it almost like you would on an iPad to get to the temperature you want. I like the interface on the cafe induction.
Yeah, cafe is successful because they've come out with color choices, specifically white and black, and 6 handle styles that could make your kitchen a little bit more unique. Their 36-inch induction, I think it's very, I like it. You got 2 griddle burners, the power burner in the middle. You want big pots, put it in the middle. You got an oblong shape, you got on either side. And I do like the interface, although electronics seem to intimidate a certain set of people. But other than that, pretty good unit. Next question. I have a 24-inch cabinet. I want to buy the new 30-inch induction range slide in. How much of the side is finished to look nice, and why is everything so deep now?
Yeah, the sides of that are finished. You won't have an issue. The one thing I will tell you is, depending on how and where your electrical was installed, it sounds like maybe you had a previous installation there. I've seen sometimes if that plug is not recessed or put in the exact spot, that it can stick the unit out itself. So either way, you're going to see, I'd have to measure, but probably right around 6 inches of the side between the door and the frame, just handle profile sticking out. And that's
my ex-neighbor had one of these. It didn't seem that bad to me. She has it in the middle of her kitchen, to be honest.
Yeah.
So maybe she recessed or something. But yeah, it's not the same as the monogram. The monogram is like hugely deep.
Yeah. No, you just have the door. The door sticks out, and that's probably about 2.5, 3 inches. And then you have the handle profile, which is about 3 inches. So it's probably 6 inches total, but that's pretty standard. There were some units back in the day, KitchenAid and Decor had, where the door was actually inset within the unit, but the trade-off when you do that too is a smaller interior oven. So, yeah.
Next question. Clients moving towards all electrical appliances. What are the pros and cons in their performance? I think induction is And I'll say it. I mean, no, you can't cook tortillas on it or flip pancakes because it needs to sense metal. Um, but in terms of power, simmer, um, child safety, it needs to sense metal to activate, and the top doesn't get as hot, so you won't get the chances of burning are much less than either gas or traditional electric. It's easier to vent, easier to clean because the top doesn't get, but especially with the ranges, it is very, very prone or susceptible to spikes. And so the reliability isn't as good as the more, staid technologies of gas or electric. That's how I see it. How about you?
Yeah, and I just switched from gas to induction, and I like it a lot. One of the cons could potentially be the power to your home, and you're even finding in new homes people are having to do with 300 and 400 amp services because there's so many if they're doing heat pump laundry or heat
Mhm.
pump heating systems in their home, so a lot of the homes are having more draw. So it's just the con could be, do you have the power and can you get the power there? Other than that, bit of a learning curve. The one thing I will say, I've had people say to me recently, and I have witnessed it, depending on your pan, some of these can give off a little whir, a little noise. Um, to me, in my house with the hood fan on, it does. I don't think twice about it. But some people are very sensitive to noise. Depending on your pan, it can make a little bit of noise. But aside from that, I love induction.
Mhm. Next question. I think these are really good choices for rental, just from the safety perspective. Again, it would go to what you said. I mean, if it's in a rural place where you lose power a lot, then no, because you can't light with a match like you can with gas. But I think in terms of overall safety, I think induction's a much better choice. I mean, you can't turn it on without metal, so the chances of anything really tragic happening are far less with induction than anything else.
Yeah,
But
the
but
one thing I would say is if it's a seasonal rental and you're providing the pans, no big deal because you're going to provide induction
yeah, that's
rated
good.
pans. If you had a rental and the people don't have induction rated, which again is not an expensive thing anymore, it's just a pan with a certain amount of ferrous metal. If as long as you make sure you cover that in your rentals, that they're not calling saying the stove isn't working because their pan doesn't conduct induction, that would be the only thing I can think of. Otherwise, I think it's great for everything Steve said,
Yeah,
safety.
and but it's also more expensive. You get a simple electric range for $600. You're not getting anywhere close for that in induction. What's the next question? Um, it really depends. I mean, we're talking about the bigger pros. You're going to get more options in terms of griddle, French top, steam oven functionality, and Thermodor's 48 and 60. Miele's got the steam assist. Um, so you have more functionality in the bigger pros. But I honestly think that I happen to like induction from a purely cooking standpoint, unless you're grilling or doing something super specialized. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I mean, I moved to induction having had gas and paid to do it. That's how strongly I feel about it.
By the way, the new Wolf 48 inch is 100 amps,
It is, yeah, 250s.
100 amps.
But
Next question.
that's back to what I said. These people they're putting massive panels in their homes now, planning for the future of electric.
Yeah, but in Boston, you've got a lot of these condos where you can't even put an electric dryer on there. You get a 50 amp total panel or something like that, like Harbor Towers or any other things.
Yeah.
Next question. Pros and cons of heat pump dryers. I think the pros to this is it's so much more energy efficient. With a vented dryer, you're taking the heat, you're putting it through elements that have been around forever and exhausting all that energy and redoing that versus a closed loop system that recycles the air through a compressor, evaporator, through a heat exchanger. Much more energy efficient, much more gentle on your clothes. Takes a little bit longer to dry, but the real question is, it's almost like a reverse refrigerator system. The big con to this is who's going to fix it.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah, and then the other con could be size. While there are some full size, really it's predominantly dominated by smaller European size machines to this point.
I think the new LG is 7.8 cubic feet. That's the biggest,
Yeah.
and I think more people come with it. I just think that if you're in Boston, the energy savings for a family, you're talking 150 to $250 at 30 cents per kilowatt hour. In California, it's what, 45 cents per kilowatt hour. That's a lot of money. Next question. What is the best and most reliable steam oven? Why are they so expensive? Is there a more reasonable alternative? You want to take this one? And then I'll finish.
I think steam ovens in general are expensive for the ones that are built in. There's only a few companies really making most of them for the brands that I think I still think Miele and Gaggenau are the two, but I still think Miele does a great job with steam. They were kind of first to it with Gaggenau, and I think that's the one I'd go with 100%. And I think they're expensive just because, listen, a lot of times it's two-step distribution for a lot of these manufacturers too. They're paying somebody else to make it. A lot of cases, they're not making it entirely their own. They're buying components from someone else.
Yeah, I would say that of the if someone's looking for a steam oven, I think Gaggenau's the best. I use it for the first time, but it doesn't have automatic programming. I have a Wolf, and I love it. And I think Miele is probably a little better because you can put in things and it'll tell you when to put them in and add. And Wolf doesn't do that. Wolf's got a really good sensor, so you can reheat something automatically, crispy, humid, or just regular. It's a great oven, but again, when something's just expensive, there's only a few manufacturers and a few units per. So to make it worth it while for making, I'm sure it's more expensive, like any other luxury kind of item. So those are the three that I would look at. Then those are the only three I would really look at, to be honest. Gaggenau, Miele, Bosch, all three are good. Next question. No. The
only thing I've done is I'll tell you, I have an LG fridge, but it has 3 ice makers. Now, knock on wood, not one is broken, but I've never had an ice maker that's worked up until now. But I guess there's the mindset, if one's broken, there's probably 2 more maybe working. I'm going with the odds of quantity.
Yeah, I think it's physics for me. I mean, you're putting an ice cube through a warmer refrigerator. I mean, it's just going to leak. It's just one of those things. It'd be interesting to see if side-by-sides, I think side-by-sides always work better because you're taking the cold cube from a cold place, but everyone wants a French door. So unfortunately, that's the price you got to pay. Next question. Draw microwaves versus the counter. Draws are just really convenient, super convenient. You put them anywhere, out of sight. You can put anything on a countertop. It works great, but using a countertop, and how many countertop items? You've got the food processor now, the blender. What else? The toaster, the microwave. Things are getting a little tight on the countertop. You get the smoker. You got a smoker, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So that's really the con of draws. Is just it's expensive, and one company makes it. I mean, the way you go around it is maybe you do you buy a Thermodor, you get their drawer for $13.99. Them and Monogram and Jenn-Air have the free deal, so that might be a good way of getting around that. Next question. Oh, man. If these steel tariffs come in, we're gonna put these appliances in frames because they're gonna be selling like artwork. It's gonna be really expensive. Yeah, we'll have those lights on them, and you will auction them off. Because this steel tariffs will kill this industry for sure.
And they're still coming. You haven't even seen the effects. You've seen first prices. There will be major price increases again in January or towards the end of this year.
Yeah, July 1, you got a whole host of people. BSH,
a ton of them coming up in a couple weeks. Yeah,
GE again. Who else? Monogram. All the foreign companies that are Chinese based are 20 to 40% increases. So, yeah, the tariffs are going to kill this industry, no question. Next question. Should I buy my Thermodor suite now instead of a year from now? What about the warranties, and which start at the time of purchase? The warranties don't start at the time of purchase. I'm dealing with we got a bad Yelp review. It starts from the occupancy permit, but you need paperwork proving that the occupancy came in. It's easy to do. It's just a pain in the butt. I understand the customer doesn't want to do that, but if you don't provide that, then it's from time of purchase or it's time of purchase. If you can provide the occupancy information or delivery information, it'll come from the time of delivery. Now, what do you think about the ThermoSuite now or a year from now?
Well, a year, gosh, I can tell you this. There's not going to be any major introductions between now and a year from now within that line. In fact, I don't think you're going to see them until 27 going into 2030. Like, I think they're a few years out for major reintroductions. They will have a new range, but that range is slated for the end of 26 going into 27. And I just don't know with all the tariffs how that all plays out. So I'll just tell you, I think your price is going to go up. If the question is that, just make sure the person you're working with honors the date of occupancy for the purchase, which they should.
Yeah, it's easy to do. Just need to provide the paperwork. And I know that
a lot of companies don't do that for customers, so they just don't. So
yeah, well, we own our own service, so we do.
Yeah, we do it.
You need to find like a self-servicing dealer that that can do that. It's not hard to do. So we have a question here on the best and most reliable dishwasher and refrigerator. Statistically, everyone hates when I say it, and I'm not paid to say it, but the most reliable dishwasher was LG last year, followed by Thermodor, which is made by Bosch. KitchenAid was good, Miele was good, and Bosch was good. We have it in our blog, but LG was 4.7% service in the first year, which is good. And LG was the most reliable refrigerator. Unfortunately, they had compressor issues. And the compressor issues, based on 5 years of us servicing LG refrigerators, are 1.1%. And everyone says you're defending them. I mean, would you take a plane if the steward says, hey, there's a 1.1% chance of us crashing and burning into a mountain somewhere? You probably wouldn't do it. But it's unfortunately in our industry, that's average. KitchenAid was 2.5%, Bosch is 0.4%. That's the best. But that's not a hell of a lot better than 1.1. So that's the best and most reliable dishwasher and refrigerator. And you got good choices there too. Bosch is a good fridge. Samsung's not bad if you can find service for it, which you can't, but we'll just pretend you can. Next question, please. How should I insulate against potential tariffs when we don't know exactly what their execution impact will be? Great question. That's exactly the question we ask.
Yeah.
I mean, it really depends. Our president, I know what he's trying to do, trying to spur American business. It's a good plan. I mean, LG is spending just today, they're spending $20 billion building new plants in the United States. That's huge for us. But I don't think you can do it in 100 days of administration. We don't know. I mean, I would say buy it now, take delivery, put it away, or find someone that will store it. That's the only way you're going to insulate yourself.
Here's what I can tell you, Calvin. These prices aren't going backwards. We have price increases again on July 1st. There will be price increases again. Unequivocally, there will be.
Yeah.
So, regardless to what plays out with the tariffs, because they're, to your point, Steve, they're having move factories. They're trying to move them to Mexico. They're trying to do everything fast, but you can't move factories and make these things happen in 6 months. You just can't. So there's going to be costs associated.
Totally agree. Next question. What is an affordable kitchen appliance package that provides a designer look? It does not need to be panel ready. It really depends what you consider affordable. You can do basic LG, you can do LG Studio, you can do G, you can do Cafe, you can do Fisher Paykel if you want a little more edge to it and a little more expensive. You can combine any of the ones and put them behind panels. That's what I do. Buy from the same company if there's rebates left. Are there any rebates left these days?
There's some. They're doing a lot more of these buy more, save more, not so much to the individual piece because the tariffs are affecting, they don't know by the day like many of us. I kind of see it like you did, if you're talking appliance package, under $7,000, I think LG Studio is a good designer look, great feature pack for an affordable price, if you consider that affordable. I think that $7,000 to $10,000 range. I think then it opens up. Cafe is in there. Yeah, even there's KitchenAid conceptually. There's some brands right in there. And then I think when you go higher, slightly higher to that 10 to 15, that's where Fisher Paykel, SKS, some of the Thermodor affordable stuff, all opens up.
Thermodor box, no. Next question. How should someone decide to whether to insist on a return or choose to repair? What's funny is one of my friends just had a problem with the range, and appliances aren't defective out of the box. Here's what we find is, back in my early days, it's like, it's not working. Okay, let's give her another one, or him. Let's give them another one. Okay, same thing happens because oftentimes it's something other than the appliance. It's the electrical, it's the plumbing, it's something endemic to the house. So what I would do is certainly have it repaired initially, right? If it's something minor, or you'll probably find it's something, something with the house more often than not. Something minor, take care of it. That's what the warranty's for. Something defective, which almost never happens, like a no cold, you'd obviously get that replaced if they can't fix it. That's what I would do. But certainly have someone look, because what happens is you find you're waiting for another delivery for the same thing to happen. A lot of this is, I understand why a lot of people want to return, because, oh, my refrigerator's dead. It could be electrical, but someone can look at it in 3.5 weeks. Well, then of course you're going to return the product. Quick service is the best way to do it. I'm telling you, I've been doing this for 39 years, and when something's no cold, it is almost something other than the appliance.
Yeah, and a lot of times, see, if it comes down to installation, so they didn't see it installed, or contractor, or heck, anyone did it or moved it. And we just had one yesterday, a refrigerator, someone swore, dead, got to get out of the house. You know how much money we spent, blah, blah, blah. But there, yep, when we left, it was working and plugged in. Someone moved it and unplugged it. Now, we went around the world with the new fridge, got all the way there and said, oh, there it is. It's working. So a lot of times it's a very simple thing, and it's your money and you're emotional about it, but just
yeah, I get it. Yeah, you get it, but most people don't have their own repair, so it's 3.5 weeks. So I understand. If you can't get a proper repair, then get it returned. Next question. Is Miele coming out with theirs?
Oh yeah, Miele is out. I mean, listen, you have, right now for Induction Ranges 36-inch, you have Wolf, Fisher Paykel, Blue Star, Bosch, Smeg, Fisher Frigidaire Pro, Electrolux, Berizon, and Monogram, Viking, Miele, Thermodor, Lecarnu, AGA. The list goes on. Blue Star coming out very soon with theirs. Has it out in the 48. So there's a ton of options out there. And then you can go down one level to Fisher Paykel, has multiple brands.
Multiple looks. Yeah.
There's a lot out there right now. But I think the two new ones, we're just talking today, Blue Star's coming out with theirs. They have it out in the 48. They'll have it real quickly here in the 36. And then in the same vein, you have Wolf relaunching their 36-inch units now with some knob control ones. They have one that's touch if you don't want the knobs, or with knobs, more pro look. So they're kind of refining their offering there.
Next question. Yes, there's no question.
100%.
Yeah,
it already is.
Yeah,
they just announced the price increase.
Yeah, it has to be. It's foreign made. I mean, who are we war with now? We're war with what? Canada, the EU, Mexico. So specifically, if it's not made in the U.S., it's going to be a problem. You know who's the most insulated price increases? Sub-Zero Wolf. During COVID, they were arguably the laggard, them and Thermodor, right? And they insourced all this stuff. All the plastics that they outsourced, they make now. All the steel, U.S. steel. So they're going to be cheaper than Thermodor probably by the end of the year. Sub-Zero product is going to be less expensive than probably maybe even others. at
Yeah.
this point. But that's interesting. Good job
Yeah.
to them. Family owned, great company. Next question. I think as long as you don't use them, these are beautiful, beautiful products. But when you talk about SMEG, and most of the Italians, the companies that we work with, whether it's Berizon and Ilve, we haven't really done it. Did we ever done it? No. You're looking at small capacities, less functionality, more service issues, but beautiful, beautiful style. I love those refrigerators, the new ones. They came out, the retro and all those different colors. I mean, these guys know fashion better than anybody. The problem is that the function, I think, lags behind that.
Yeah, I think there's some people there that are actually trying to make a difference, but they get a hard time. If you do any research, it's just, and they've supposedly built a better one, but their customer service arm, the back end, it's just, they're used to making toasters,
It's a good looking toaster. Next
It
question.
is.
And it's a good looking tea kettle. I mean, what's to a tea kettle anyway? I mean, it's just you're adding water to a steel basin, putting flame next to the steel basin to get steam. It's not hard. But what is the best 48? We just wrote a blog post on this. What are your thoughts?
Well, it's not a counter depth, just for everyone. I mean, depending, it's a built-in. I still think it's Sub-Zero on the 48-inch, and then I think Thermodor and everyone else is kind of just that way. It's everyone else because they make a lot of them for the other manufacturers.
I still like Sub-Zero. I like the True if you're looking for an interesting high fashion color. A Thermodor, the problem is that when you're putting so many drawers underneath the product, you're raising that fridge, and I would really look at that before you bought it. So we got a question about I just bought the bespoke dishwasher and fridge from Samsung. What are your thoughts on the bespoke appliances? What do you think?
I mean, I think they're good looking. I think they're unique colors. I think that's it. Listen, it's not us. Bespoke is Samsung is just not a demand brand. It has so many issues, and it's crazy. We're going to read about it in the business books. It's just a brand that was the driving call you got, and now it's not unless it's somebody looking for service.
Yeah,
so I hope you have a good service agent. That's it.
Yeah, I think in terms of the one thing I'll give Samsung is they made, they came in and made appliances good looking,
Yeah,
affordably. You can get good looking appliances, but you'd have to pay Wolf Sub-Zero money to get them. The problem is that I don't think they ever counted on their own popularity, and they were just demolished from a back end service. And a lot of the companies, even the Asian companies that I work with, like the old Panasonics and Sharps, the old ones, they understood one thing: how to sell it, distribute it. The whole backside service is really lacking. And when you're as popular as Samsung was out of the gate, they were at one time the number one demanded brand in the United States.
100%.
And they just have zero capability to handle that. So all right. But good looking. So just hope you don't use them that much. Next question. What do you think?
Well, so I think depending on what you consider for features, I think most the brands, the Thermidors, the Monograms, let's just stick with 36. It falls suit for 48. They're in that low $7,000, $7,200 range. Wolf being at like $79.99. I think in value underneath that, if you're talking a true pro, if you want to be below $7,000, it gets a little dicey. But there's a Blue Star Culinary, and it's a workhorse, just very straightforward range. That's in the high fives. That's a good value. But I think for all the pros, you're in that 7 to 8. And listen, I like any of them. I like Blue Star. I continue to like Blue Star. I like Wolf, but I'd probably say Blue Star in that all gas price point value.
Well, it's really funny. Everybody's it's a war on the dual fuel side. Like everybody brings the best. Miele's got their M Touch with steam assist, speed oven, warming drawer, and everybody abandoned all gas. Like the Wolf all gas is the same as it was in 2000. And they made like 6 design changes to the dual fuel. The dual fuel's got the screen and the twin convection and, all sorts of stuff to it. But in terms of all gas, Blue Star manufactures 5 different series of all gas, and they're the only ones with the ProBake European style convection and superpower and everything else. I like that one. I like that one a lot in all gas. I like the Miele in all gas. I think it's very clean, kind of contemporary, self-cleaning. You get some functionality to it because you don't get any functionality in all gas. In dual fuel, you get a lot of good choices, and it really depends on what you want. Wolf's probably the best all around. Blue Star's the most powerful. You have Thermodor with the steam oven. You have Miele with the steam assist. It really depends on what you want. I mean, I always try to sidestep. What do you buy? What do you have in your kitchen, or what do you think the best is? It's not what I think; it's what you'll use. You being whoever's watching this. So that's it. Wait a minute, we got one more. Suppose you're planning a small dwelling unit, space for one small oven, convection steam, microwave, whatever, an available combination. What type would you choose? Why and what brand? Now, what do we consider small? Small oven or microwave style? Go ahead. You go ahead. You do this. Let's say we're in an RV. Like my kid wants to go to auto camp, like one of those RVs, right? Where you can only get like a small unit. What are you going to get?
Oh, speed oven. It's easy because you can microwave, you can bake, you can roast, you can kind of work like you can a regular oven. And I always tell people if it's in a home, even though you might be able to live with, say, just a microwave or just a steam oven, that's fine if you're it's your be all and end all. But if you go to sell it, a lot of people might come in and be like, wait, it just has a steam oven? You might love steam, but if you're in that area of selling in any near future, I say go with something that's kind of more broad that can do a lot of things as opposed to such a very specific thing for you if you're going to sell it soon. If you don't care, you're going to live in it, you do whatever you want. But I think a combi oven, speed oven.
Yeah, it really all depends where you're going to put it and what we're talking about. If we're talking about RV, then, resale value of an RV. I think RV people kind of like, know that they're not going to get like, a 48-inch Pro. That said, there are a couple good options. You would want an oven that would do multiple things. And for me, if you don't want to do steam, you may want to consider an Invanium that can do that. It's pretty easy to use. You can do it in a the really maximum one. You could do that. You can do any kind of speed oven as well. And I would focus on the ones that are easy to use, kind of like the Miele, that sort of thing, with very easy interfaces where you're not learning and burning, as it were. And that's what I would do. I personally, if it was my RV, I'd probably do a steam oven. I love.
We got to RV. I think it's a dwelling unit, but it's fine if it were a dwelling unit or an RV.
Well, the RV is a small dwelling unit.
Well, maybe on wheels.
You want to do a quick one on 42-inch counter depth French door refrigerators?
Yeah, and again, that word counter depth, listen, we're not correcting you, but it is a built-in. Counter depths are max size of 36 inches, but a built-in 42-inch LG. So there's a French door would be an SKS, and I listen. I'm a big proponent. I think SKS is come light speed with technology and feature. I think it offers good value. They have some great builder programs.
You telling me they're side by side?
Yeah, it's a French door that he'd be asking about, which they don't have. They actually have a 36-inch French door. Yeah. But they, if you're actually in LG, then 42-inch French door would be. Now, why did I say LF? Was I thinking LG? It's LF.
No, it's LF is the guy who's asking.
I thought he said LG. Sorry. On a 42-inch French door, listen, I think Sub-Zero has that nailed. And I'll tell you for a bunch of reasons. It's not, if you do any of the others, like say a Thermodor, that top shelf is so high, very clean. Yeah. I like the installation, but it is really high. Look at it. The Sub-Zero is pushed down. Trade-off, it's a little deeper potentially on how you install it, but it's at more of the right level, I think.
It's 6'7" to the top versus 6 feet to the top of the Sub-Zero.
Yeah.
For me, in 42-inch, it really depends. If you want something inexpensive, the LG, but it's only one. The less expensive ones, like LG's going for $8,000.
Correct.
But it's one compressor. So is monogram. Monogram's one compressor, but they got vents under each shelving. It's a little bit nicer. Thermodor, decent, tall. Sub-Zero is probably the best, but it really depends again on the price you want to pay. So that's about it. We covered, I think, 30 questions in 36 minutes. It's not bad. That could be a new record for us here.
Here we go. Breaking record.
Fran who?
Perfect. I'm waiting for this moment.
All right. Well, listen, thanks for everybody who attended, all of you. And thanks, Dennis, for filling in.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it.
See you.